Welcome back to the channel. All right, it's time for the November update to the Battlegrounds tier list. Remember, this is solely for Battlegrounds, and this is the default rankings. This is what I use. A lot of folks on the MCoC Illuminati, I do believe, use this, but they also have massive input on this and their experiences, and the spreadsheet wizards as well. Also, the screenshot size will be created by Misty K, put up on my Twitter feed and that sort of thing. So make sure to follow me and all that so you can get this the nice screenshot size. And remember, you always want to update for the meta that Kabam is throwing at us, right? But that's part of what we put into this is, if a champion we think has a lot of versatility, they're going to get a higher score because they might be great in a singular meta, like Scarlet Witch, OG Scarlet Witch in this last Crimmy meta was a bonkers champion, right? A lot of RNG, but still bonkers. But in general, is she really that good? No. And that's why we stay consistent with this sort of thing so that you can rank these champions up. And then over the course of time, it's really going to pay off for you. And then when a certain meta comes, you can rank up 1 or 2 champions, maybe some 6 stars or something like that, if you really want to dive into Battlegrounds and that sort of thing. All right, let's go and jump into this. And one thing I'm doing differently is often I'm asked to highlight the champion I'm talking about. Because of the way I record it, it's a little difficult for me to do that. It's not that I don't want to, it just doesn't really work out that well. So I at least have them in this bright red. And then of course there's going to be the little microphone next to it. Make sure you check out the legend there so you can understand kind of what we're talking about and really read this differently than you read other tier lists. I always get those questions too, and I can tell there's a lot of confusion because you're so used to other tier lists. All right. Big preamble, but at least you got to see all the dual threats here. And for me, while the attackers and defenders are just as important in my Battlegrounds deck, the dual threats are the building block. They're who I draft first, so I can kind of make sure I can either corner my opponent or my opponent doesn't corner me as we go through those sorts of things. And the first champion we're going to talk about today is Black Panther Silver War. This is a recent buff. I will be getting out a full video on the buff. I really like it. I think he's a very good champion. I think he's incredibly fun to play. I think he's very well made. He has a good flow. But as far as Battlegrounds is concerned, I do see a defensive threat. I do see that. I think you want to play him in a very specific way. So I think you could rank him up for that. And I actually originally had him listed as a defender. But a lot of the Illuminati looked at it and they're like, hey, I think you're shortchanging his offensive use too. Even though I had him as a defender, that's why he still has the fencing emoji. I'll remove that. It was because I had him as a defender with some offensive use. And I'll tell you my thoughts on it. And this is why. I think, yes, he can do a tremendous amount of damage in a very short period of time. And I will show you that in the video. And it seems very tailored for Battlegrounds and for War. And DLL even called that out in the video he did on this. Make sure you check out that video. But for me, what it is especially as you go to higher tier Battlegrounds, but I think it's this way in all tiers, is there's just these dominant defenders. And we see them all the time. And it is tiring a little bit. I'm getting a little tired of it. We're always seeing Photon, we're always seeing Onslaught, we're always seeing Serpent, we're always seeing Bullseye. I just don't think he's going to be that good for him. Now, a couple Illuminati guys, I think it was Jaeger and Agatron, pointed out, like, he might be better for a Photon than you think. And I was able to recreate something in a duel that was relatively impressive, in my opinion. It was using the SP1, and he's got the cleanse mechanics and a really nice burst damage. So you want to check that out. But I think we're starting off with the 7. I think this is someone that, like, certain metas might elevate him significantly. And in your general default meta, just your kind of nuke thing, I don't know how great he's going to be. He's someone who you might pull and draft as like with a defensive use. And then depending on how the draft goes, if your opponent has to place a defender that maybe isn't one of those like dominant bonkers defenders that are in the game, you might be able to come in and use your Black Panther and get a really good score. Like in your just kind of normal defenders, he's pretty bonkers because you can just get to the SP2 and you win the fight. So I can see that. I think there's a lot of value in that. And this is a good example. And this is kind of how you get a 7 of a champion where, like, if you really enjoy them and you learn how to play them really well and you learn the spacing and all these things, you could probably have results that are more reflective of like an 8 or a 9. But as far as like your just baseline value when compared to the rest of the champions, I feel comfortable more with the 7. We'll keep our eye on it as we do every single month. And if he seems to be more of an 8 or more of a defender, we will move him there. All right, let's go ahead and check out the attackers. All right, now we're on to the pure attackers. I know I'm covering up the top shelf and the premium. We'll show them all at once. And there's a reason is I really want to focus on Spiral. She's bonkers. Like, the Illuminati has actually had to talk me down, really reminding me like, hey, you always start off conservative, right? And that served you very well for the multiple years that you've been doing this. Because, she's clearly great for Serpent. But here's the thing, and I didn't get out the new champion video, and I apologize. I've just been so overwhelmingly busy, is she's like at least good in her non-ideal matchups. And Serpent is so overwhelmingly present in Battlegrounds and defensive that like having someone who's great for him, but then also can serve you very well for what appear to be a variety of other defenders is, again, like bonkers. I really do want to give her a 10. I think she's going to end up as a 10. She can be a little difficult to play, especially as fights go on, but Battleground fights aren't that long usually, outside of some really interesting metas. And like I said, and I still might get out the new champion video on her. If you guys haven't seen enough on them, let me know and I'll get one out. So let me know. I'll leave that up to you all in the comments and I'll see what people say. Because usually I like to get them out on the day of. But she's so great in fights where there's a lot of buffs or where there are just like any buffs or where there's power gain. But then she's very good outside of that as well. She has the really cool, unique dodge back mechanic. She has the passive stun when her swords are up. She has a tremendous amount of rupture damage, which very few champions are immune to. So like you're starting to get to the point where you're like, okay, unless they can basically purify or tenacity her rupture debuffs, what actually slows her down? She even has, if you get her sig high enough, you have the ability to get some ability to take like hazard shifts and various damaging debuffs. That would slow her down, but how often do we see a hazard shift node in Battlegrounds? She's bonkers. I don't know what else to say. Besides that, she's honestly the first champion in a very long time I actually considered getting the early access for, and I'm still not positive that I won't, but I did feel like those days were over. But she's so bonkers for the mode that I take the most seriously that I'm genuinely considering it. I feel very confident with a 9. And like I said, the Illuminati kind of had to talk me down from having her as a 10 because she is so outrageously good against the most dominant defender in Battlegrounds. And then she's very good for a lot of other defenders that we frequently see. And then seems like at least pretty good for a lot of other champions. That sort of versatility is how you become a 10. All right, now we're on to the top shelf and the super premium attackers. The first two we'll talk about are Shothra and Mordo. You know, Shothra's great, and there's even, I think, arguments because she also is good for Serpent. I think she was actually built to beat up Maestro. So those are two of the more common cosmic defenders that we're seeing in this current Gladiator circuit meta with the Fate Seal. We'll see how prevalent they are, but again, this is about your default rankings and these sorts of things. So we're not just focused on single metas. Last meta was not that great for her with the Crit Me. And so I think she wasn't as prevalent as people are going to end up realizing she's going to be. She's a fantastic champion. And if I don't save my Titan crystals in order to try to get Spiral when she comes in December, it's almost purely now going to be for Shothra. I'll cover that in a different video if I do another opening. But she's fantastic. Very, very good champion. And I think definitely has a place in Battlegrounds. Mordo, this one caused a lot of like, not controversy, but a lot of conversation because a lot of the Illuminati were like, Mordo, really? And I just have to say, and I want to shout out TC on my Discord server who's been saying Mordo for a long time, showing his videos. And then there's a lot of other information or like fights that I have been privy or I've been fortunate enough to see. They've been in some chats that I've been in, and I really appreciate those players sharing all their knowledge and things like that. Some of the things I'm seeing Mordo do, yes, even in like Crit Me and all these places, it's just wild and bonkers. The skill that you need to have in order to play Mordo well is exceptionally high. And it's not just game skill. I think it's also like Mordo skill. It's like intercepting, it's holding your heavy. There's just a lot there. I even fooled around with it a little bit myself, and in no way did I spend even close to the amount of time in order to get all his fury buffs up and that sort of thing and be able to intercept with my heavy and use my specials to do that. But I was getting, at times when I played it perfectly, I was getting some very shockingly good results. I think if you really want to invest in Mordo, like you just really like him, I think you could pump him up to like a 9, maybe a 10. I don't want to go too far, but I think without that, he's definitely a solid 8. And here's the thing, not a terrible defender. I really think you could probably trap your opponent sometimes too, based on that. Spider-Punk. This is another one where the Illuminati needed to talk me down a little bit. I personally think Spider-Punk's a 9. I really do. Not only because he's great for all of the Mystic champions. This is buff Spider-Punk, and I will be getting out a buff Spider-Punk video, so hopefully you check that out. I've had him at rank 3 from before the buff. I really liked him anyways then, but his damage now on a shorter loop is enough to get your Battlegrounds fights done pretty damn well. Like he's not necessarily quite the nuke that Silk is, but I think he's got more versatility. I think he has a unique damage source, and he's able to really come out of it with a lot of health. He's also a blast to play, so sometimes that's a little hard to separate and really doesn't go into the rankings for Battlegrounds. But when the Illuminati was like, Vega, I don't think he's quite a 9. Let's see that play out first. I really needed to listen to them because, again, I do have him at rank 3, and I do think he's a lot of fun to play. If you're like Spider-Punk, really, my signature ability on him, I think, is now up to 80. He's producing really good results. Like I said, I'm going to put out the buff champion video on him. It won't be purely Battlegrounds related. Might not even show a Battlegrounds fight. So he's great for questing, but I really see a role for him in Battlegrounds. He has some defensive threat too, so maybe we'll add the potential defender emoji to him as well. But I think a fantastic attacker there. Moving on, we'll talk about Jack-o'-lantern. I did do the new champion video on him. He's clearly tailored to fight Onslaught, right? Like the reverse controls, immunity. He's got like so many little bits of utility. I covered a lot of it in the new champion video on him that are very tailored towards Onslaught. Like even like I think he has the cowardice that influences the champion to not throw their special one. And the fact of the matter is Onslaught maybe not quite as oppressive as like Serpent is, but he's starting to inch towards that as a defender. And so if a champion is tailored to defeat that defender, their utility and stuff is going to be good enough for them to have utility against a lot of other champions and nodes. And Jack really fits that category. His damage does seem to be enough where he's going to be good against other champions. Him though, he's not Spiral. I want to make that abundantly clear. He's not Spiral. I feel very confident that maybe in like 6 months, we'll all look back and laugh at how wrong I am on that one. But I don't think he's Spiral as far as the versatility and the shutdown of that oppressive defender. Plus, there's more options, I think, for fighting Onslaught than there are for Serpent. And then I don't think he's as good outside of his targeted matchups as Spyro is, but I think he's great. I could definitely see him going up to 8. And I think a champion where if you really learn how to use him, you take him to the highest ranking and those sorts of things, you could probably produce results that are above this if that's how you isolate him. And as we talked about earlier, that's kind of what a 7 is. You can take almost everything I just said as far as like how you get to a 7 and apply it to Medusa and Scream. I think they both can end up as 8s, probably not 9s, because there's not like these oppressive defenders, these dominant defenders currently that are asking for what they do. If that happens, then of course your score goes up because you're now more valuable, right? The more defenders you can take, or the more dominant, oppressive defenders you can take, the higher your value goes up, right? There's a variety of champions who can do things quickly, but it's how many defenders can you do it to, or how prevalent are those defenders, or how difficult are those defenders. Scream and Medusa, they are different than each other, but they have some overlap. There's a little bit of a Venn diagram thing going on with them both. I think they're both great. I want them both. I will rank them both up. I think they're both fun to play. But right now, I feel comfortable with the 7. If we start getting some tech defenders in that are really asking for them, or if we see that they're just so damn fast that they can take a variety of things, which is maybe more possible as Scream, they will definitely be moving up to an 8. I don't see 9s in their future. Potentially Scream because how fast you can be, but we'll see how many, again, of those like oppressive dominant defenders she may be able to take. And then Carnage. I did the video on Carnage, which came out as a 7-star. I was kind of surprised that happened. And I realized Carnage is better than I thought he was. Can be incredibly fast if you play him a very specific way, which I showed in that video. I don't think there's a lot of defenders, especially the big bad defenders, that he's going to be taking for you. But if you want to rank him up because you have fun, I know he's got his fans, there's going to be a lot of stuff you can do with him. Really fun champion. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at those defenders. All right, no defender changes this month. I do want to at least leave this up a little bit, so I'm going to kind of take a quick look about it. I recently took my Iron Man Infinity War to rank 3. He's been phenomenal, right? I wanted to take up a Tony Stark. Iron Man Infinity War is a great defender, so I wanted to take him up anyway. I think he's going to serve me really well in this current Gladiator circuit, current victory track, and just so on and so forth. Dust does have some offensive capabilities. That's why she's got the little fencing emoji there to show that. Really good defender, especially if you got her awakened. The 10 out of 10s, you can see there's very few of them. These are kind of the dominant, oppressive defenders that I'm talking about. You got Bullseye, Atuma, and Serpent. That's really about it. And then the 9s, they can cause serious problems. I still struggle with Maestro. Part of why I think I want, I can't think of her name right now, the bug one, the bug lady, Shathra. so darn bad. Korg is still a problem for me. Nick Fury, until I think 7-star rank 3s are just everywhere, or 7-star rank 4s. I think with that second life, it just takes time, right? It just takes time. Killmonger, they keep coming out with more and more champions that might be able to take him. Oh, I forgot to mention at the time, but I'm going to mention it now. Black Panther Civil War, actually good for Killmonger. I will show that in the video. But even with all these various answers out for Killmonger, he's so unique. Like, we actually had this discussion on my Discord server recently. Like, is he really a skill champion? Like, what archetype does he truly fit? Variety of answers. Everyone's answers kind of made a lot of sense because he is so unique. Definitely doesn't just fit that skill archetype. And I think that's part of why he's got so much longevity, even though they keep putting out answers for him or champions that could take him. It's like, do you have enough answers for when he can be placed? So if you ranked up Killmonger, you're probably still going to have some pretty good success, although keep an eye out for Dazzler potentially being one more champion that shuts him down. And then Kindred is tough. You mess up, you're going to probably die, or at least take a significant chunk of health loss. And Enchantress, right? Like, would she please just throw her heavy? It'd be really nice if she would. As usual, let us know what you think you got right. Let us know what you think we got wrong. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're having some fun in Battlegrounds. Take care.